There is a mistake most people make before they are old enough to understand the cost of it. They believe freedom is the highest form of power. They dream of waking without obligations, answering to no one, doing as they please, moving where desire pulls them, speaking without restraint, choosing without consequence. They call this liberty. They worship it as if the absence of chains were the same as strength. But look carefully at those who chase freedom above all else. Many become scattered, easy to distract, easy to seduce, easy to replace. They mistake open space for territory. They mistake movement for progress. They mistake options for leverage. Freedom, in its common form, is often nothing more than unclaimed ground, empty air, potential with no architecture. It feels intoxicating because it contains no immediate pain. But what contains no structure also contains no force. A man with no commitments may feel free, yet he can be displaced by anyone with discipline. A woman with endless options may feel powerful, yet she can be ruled by appetite disguised as choice. A mind that answers to nothing often kneels to impulse. This is the part most people resist hearing. The opposite of slavery is not freedom. The opposite of slavery is command. And command does not belong to the free. It belongs to the expansive. Freedom asks, what can I avoid? Expansiveness asks, what can I absorb? Freedom seeks escape from pressure. Expansiveness learns to metabolize pressure into influence. Freedom wants less weight. Expansiveness increases its capacity to carry weight others cannot bear. That is why many who appear free remain weak, while some who carry immense burdens quietly shape the world around them. You were taught to protect your peace. Reasonable advice for fragile people. But peace without reach is decorative. Calmness without capability is a luxury granted by stronger hands nearby. The world has always belonged less to the innocent than to the organized, less to the expressive than to the contained, less to the free than to the expansive. To understand this, observe human behavior when resources narrow. When money thins, people reveal hierarchy. When attention becomes scarce, affection becomes strategic. When status is threatened, morality becomes flexible. When comfort disappears, principles become negotiable. Most people are not evil. They are adaptive. That is more dangerous. They do not betray because betrayal excites them. They betray because pressure clarifies preference. Under enough strain, many choose self-preservation over virtue and call it necessity. The expansive person understands this early. He does not become cynical. Cynicism is emotional. It is wounded idealism pretending to be wisdom. He becomes accurate. He stops expecting fairness from hunger. He stops expecting loyalty from vanity. He stops expecting consistency from those governed by mood. And because he stops expecting illusions, he begins building realities. You can detect the free person by his language. He speaks often of boundaries, rest, doing what feels right, avoiding negativity, protecting energy, cutting people off, needing space, finding himself. Some of this has value, but when it becomes a worldview, it reveals retreat. The expansive person speaks differently. He speaks of capacity, timing, position, leverage, patience, reserves, reputation, access, asymmetry. He asks not merely how to feel better, but how to become harder to corner. He asks not who offended him, but who benefits from his distraction. He asks not what he wants now, but what wanting now will cost later. This is why he often appears colder than others. He is not cold. He is accounting. The sentimental mind sees interactions as emotional moments. The expansive mind sees patterns accumulating interest. A favor given carelessly becomes expectation. A confession made too early becomes future leverage. An indulgence repeated becomes dependency. A tolerance granted once becomes precedent. The weak suffer from isolated thinking. They judge each event separately. The dangerous understand continuity. Nothing stands alone. Every exchange trains someone. Every reaction teaches others how to handle you. Every exception edits your value. Every silence writes permission in invisible ink. Most people think they are living among personalities. They are living among incentives. Change the incentives and personalities mutate overnight. The timid become bold when protected. The loyal become restless when admired elsewhere. The ethical become evasive when watched by no one. The arrogant become polite when dependent. The expansive person studies incentives because he knows character is often only habit under stable conditions. Remove conditions and hidden structure emerges. This is why he rarely worships charm. Charm is social camouflage. Some smile because they are warm. Others smile because your guard lowers faster than your standards rise. Some flatter because they admire. Others flatter because vanity is cheaper to purchase than competence. Some listen because they care. Others listen because information given Voluntarily is cleaner than information extracted by force. Human beings confess most to those who make them feel seen. That is why many predators first learn tenderness, not to love, to enter. You have likely met people whose kindness felt strangely efficient. They remembered details, mirrored values, anticipated insecurities, offered support at precise moments of vulnerability. You called them intuitive. Perhaps they were. But intuition without conscience becomes instrumentation. The expansive person does not become paranoid around warmth. He becomes observant. He asks whether generosity remains when no return is possible. He asks whether patience survives disagreement. He asks whether affection respects limits. He asks whether praise disappears when compliance does. Because motives reveal themselves not in harmony, but in resistance. Anyone can seem noble while getting their way. Few remain graceful when denied access. There is another confusion common among the free. They believe saying no is power. Sometimes it is. But refusal without alternatives is merely posture. If you cannot replace what you reject, your standards are theater. Many boast of cutting people off because they lack the skill to reposition them. Many celebrate walking away because they never learned to negotiate from strength. Many call themselves selective when they are simply avoidant. Expansiveness is different. It can deny, delay, redirect, contain, absorb, or exploit depending on what serves long-term position. It does not worship one tactic because mature power is versatile. A tree that only resists storms snaps. A tree that bends selectively survives long enough to dominate the canopy. This is why rigid morality often loses to adaptive discipline. The moralist says, "I would never." The expansive asks, "Under what conditions do people usually begin to?" One speaks from identity. The other studies thresholds. Thresholds matter more than declarations. Everyone believes they know themselves while untested. The faithful imagine loyalty until temptation arrives disguised as validation. The patient imagine calm until insult meets insecurity. The generous imagine virtue until scarcity narrows the table. The brave imagine courage until cost becomes personal. You do not know yourself by ideals. You know yourself by price. And so do others. This is why some people quietly test you. They arrive late to see if your standards hold. They disrespect subtly to gauge retaliation. They ask small favors to map guilt. They withdraw attention to measure desperation. They mention rivals to study envy. They disagree publicly to inspect composure. Most people feel these tests but cannot name them. They only notice a strange fatigue around certain individuals. That fatigue is often the cost of being measured. The expansive person notices quickly. He understands that some conversations are not conversations. They are reconnaissance. Some compliments are not compliments. They are bait. Some conflicts are not conflicts. They are calibration. Once you see this, social life changes texture. You stop answering every question honestly. You stop defending every accusation seriously. You stop correcting every lie immediately. You stop explaining boundaries to those who profit from crossing them. Not because secrecy is noble, because access should be earned. There is danger in being too available. Availability invites consumption. People value what requires coordination, timing, effort, or merit. They often waste what arrives without friction. This includes your time, your attention, your emotional labor, your predictability. The free person gives these away casually because abundance feels generous. The expansive person distributes them strategically because abundance without gatekeeping attracts parasites. Notice how some people always seem overwhelmed by others. They are not cursed. They are permeable. They absorb requests without filters, moods without distance, expectations without contracts, chaos without consequence. Then they wonder why life feels heavy. Water enters every structure with cracks. So does manipulation. A person who cannot tolerate disappointing others becomes a tool in polished clothing. Many are ruled not by tyrants, but by their inability to withstand temporary disapproval. That weakness is common because humans are tribal. Rejection once meant danger. The nervous system still remembers old landscapes. But modern predators understand ancient wiring. They use silence as punishment because exclusion unsettles. They use inconsistency as control because uncertainty bonds attention. They use guilt because conscience can be weaponized. They use urgency because rushed minds borrow judgment from louder voices. They use pity because some people would rather drown than seem selfish. The expansive person studies these mechanisms first in himself. He asks where approval still controls him. He asks where loneliness lowers standards. He asks where attraction blinds risk assessment. He asks where pride invites provocation. He asks where guilt bypasses logic. Until these doors are known, they remain unlocked. This is why self-knowledge is not spiritual decoration. It is perimeter security. Without it, you can be entered by tone. Beauty, status, sadness, confidence, outrage, helplessness, or praise depending on your personal flaw. Everyone has a keyhole. Most simply pretend otherwise. Another uncomfortable truth. Many relationships are negotiations disguised as emotions. Affection often contains exchange. Respect often follows utility. Attention often tracks novelty or status. Concern often increases when departure becomes possible. This does not make all bonds fake. It makes them layered. Only naive people insist love is pure or power is separate from intimacy. The expansive person understands that care and leverage can coexist. He does not panic at this. He adjusts. He knows that if you become impossible to replace, treatment changes. If you become easy to access, treatment changes. If you become visibly desired elsewhere, treatment changes. If you become dependent, treatment changes. If you become emotionally readable, treatment changes. People respond to incentives even while calling it chemistry. This is why desperation repels. It signals trapped demand. What is trapped can be discounted. Calm selectivity attracts because it implies options. What has options can negotiate. The free person says, I just want someone who values me. The expansive person asks, what conditions make undervaluing me costly? One seeks fairness. The other builds consequence. History favors the second. There is also the matter of reputation. Many dismiss reputation as vanity. That is childish. Reputation is prepaid context. It enters rooms before you do. It influences how ambiguity around you is interpreted. If you are known as disciplined, lateness is assumed exceptional. If you are known as chaotic, excellence is assumed accidental. If you are known as scarce, invitations become sharper. If you are known as needy, promises become softer. The expansive person protects reputation not for applause, but for efficiency. A strong name reduces future friction. A weak name taxes every interaction. Most damage to reputation is self-inflicted through emotional leakage. Oversharing, public impulsiveness, reactive statements, visible inconsistency, cheap affiliations, repeated excuses. The world does not need complete information to judge you. It only needs enough patterns to simplify you, and it will. This is another reason detachment is useful. Not because feelings are weakness, but because public feelings are often data. Those who reveal everything feel authentic. Those who observe everything become formidable. There is a sentence many fear. I don't know what he's thinking. Mystery unsettles because unreadable people cannot be easily managed. The expansive person does not perform mystery theatrically. That is adolescent. He simply keeps internal weather internal. He smiles without surrendering map coordinates. He listens without donating motives. He speaks clearly without exposing reserves. He can be warm without being open. This distinction saves lives. Warmth invites cooperation. Exposure invites exploitation. Do not confuse the two. Another trap of the freedom-obsessed mind is endless self-expression. It believes saying what it feels is inherently healthy. Sometimes, but expression without filtration creates trails others follow back to your weak points. Resentment reveals where envy lives. Boasting reveals where insecurity lives. Complaint reveals where discipline is absent. Constant irony reveals fear of sincerity. Constant sincerity reveals lack of strategic concealment. Everything said repeatedly becomes a dossier. The expansive person is not mute. He is selective. He knows some truths belong to timing, not honesty. He knows some emotions should be processed privately before being displayed publicly. He knows some victories should remain quiet until irreversible. He knows some plans die from exposure more often than from opposition. Seeds uprooted daily do not grow. Neither do ambitions announced for applause. Most people seek witnesses too early because they confuse being seen with becoming real. The expansive prefers becoming real first. Then visibility becomes optional. There is a reason disciplined people often appear less dramatic. Drama consumes surplus energy needed for construction. Chaos feels alive to the underbuilt. Noise feels meaningful to the directionless. Conflict feels intimate to the empty. The expansive person may engage conflict, but never for stimulation. Only for outcome. He does not argue to discharge emotion. He argues to reposition reality. If no repositioning is possible, he often withholds engagement. This frustrates volatile people. They rely on pulling others into arenas where impulse beats thought. Silence can be humiliating to those who feed on reaction. That is why some provoke repeatedly. They do not need truth. They need access to your nervous system. Deny them that, and many collapse into ordinary proportions. Remember this when insulted by someone beneath your future. Response is not always strength. Sometimes response is tribute. The free person cannot bear being misunderstood. The expansive person calculates the price of correction. Not every lie deserves energy. Not every rumor deserves oxygen. Not every attack deserves acknowledgement. Some fires die from starvation. Others spread from attention. Wisdom is knowing which is which. Now consider fear. Most imagine fear as shaking hands, racing heart, visible nerves. Those are symptoms. Fear in its more common form is compliance dressed as reason. Staying where you are diminished because change is uncertain. Smiling at disrespect because confrontation is inconvenient. Delaying decisions because outcomes cannot be guaranteed. Accepting crumbs because hunger speaks loudly. Calling surrender maturity because courage would expose laziness. The expansive person still feels fear, but he treats fear as information, not instruction. If something scares him, he asks whether the danger is real or whether identity is threatened. Many fear not loss itself, but losing the story they tell about themselves. The smart one sees through this vanity. He can look foolish temporarily to avoid becoming foolish permanently. He can retreat without shame if terrain is poor. He can wait without insecurity if timing is wrong. He can strike without anger if action becomes necessary. Emotionally immature people require emotions to justify movement. The expansive requires only alignment. There is also the matter of morality. People often ask whether such realism corrupts. Usually they ask this while benefiting from systems built by harder minds than their own. Morality matters. But morality without force is request language. The world contains many who praise goodness publicly while obeying strength privately. This is not noble. It is normal. The expansive person therefore seeks enough force, financial, social, mental, physical, to protect what he values. Without protective capacity, values become hostage notes. He does not worship domination. He simply refuses helplessness. That distinction is everything. Helpless people are often forced into compromises they later rename wisdom. Capability grants cleaner ethics. When you can walk away, honesty becomes easier. When you can survive alone, standards become possible. When you can replace environments, dignity becomes practical. Dependence is the silent editor of principles. Many would be different if they could afford to be. So build until you can. Not loudly, not theatrically, quietly. Increase competence, increase reserves, increase discernment, increase tolerance for solitude. Increase emotional range without emotional leakage. Increase usefulness without becoming used. Increase calm under pressure. Increase your ability to read incentives. Increase your ability to disappoint manipulators without guilt. This is expansiveness. Not fame, not endless pleasure, not collecting admirers. Capacity, range, weight-bearing force. Internal acreage no one can rent. When you become expansive, something subtle happens. The needy stop sensing easy harvest. The chaotic stop finding soft walls. The vain stop receiving mirrors. The controlling stop finding handles. The opportunistic grow polite. The sincere become clearer. Because your structure changes the behavior around you. Many think they need better people. Often they need stronger boundaries, clearer value, steadier nerves, and less visible hunger. Human nature responds accordingly. In the end, freedom is pleasant but fragile. It can be taken by debt, illness, panic, loneliness, addiction, dependency, public opinion, one persuasive person, one desperate season. Expansiveness is harder to steal. It lives in competence no market can erase quickly. In judgment, no flattery can easily distort. In discipline, no mood can permanently interrupt. In standards, no scarcity can cheaply purchase. In composure, no insult can reliably command. That is why some lose everything and rebuild, while others lose comfort and collapse. One possessed circumstances, the other possessed capacity. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Most cages are not made of iron. They are made of appetite, vanity, fear, and the desire to be liked. And most people, freedom is often just a wider cage. Expansiveness is different. It cannot be granted and it cannot be easily taken. Build capacity, not image. Build control, not comfort. In the end, the world does not belong to those with the most options. It belongs to those who cannot be cornered.